So many players letting down your fantasy team in week 7. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back Endgame community. It's Chris, and we're going to talk about some players who didn't meet expectations in week 7 or maybe have not been meeting expectations all season long. And we're going to talk about whether you should or should not be panicking on these guys. So let's get into it. Now, I usually don't put guys on this video who didn't play in the current week or who are injured. But DeAndre Swift was supposed to play in week 7. After the bye, was supposed to be good to go. You were supposed to have DeAndre Swift back and healthy and ready for the rest of the season. And then what happened? Kind of limited in practice. Got the report on Friday. He's questionable. We'll see. Then we got the report Saturday night. Probably not going to play, barring a surprise. And then Sunday morning, it was official. DeAndre Swift is out. What is going on with this DeAndre Swift injury or injuries? Because is it the ankle? Is it the shoulder? Is it both? Is it something else? Who knows? But DeAndre Swift has missed a lot of time in his brief career now. We got to start wondering, is he glass? Is he injury prone? Will he ever get back on the field again? Is he already dust at the young age of 24 or whatever he is? No, probably not. But I get it. A lot of people are panicking right now. They're worried that this guy is just injury prone and is not going to be back. And is going to miss tons of games. But don't worry. All it's going to take is for DeAndre Swift to get back on the field, put up monster numbers, and nobody will care anymore. Remember Christian McCaffrey? Yeah, I remember Christian McCaffrey. Look, I get it. It's unfortunate. I have Swift in a few leagues. I wish he had played this week. He didn't. But I still got to put the panic level low for DeAndre Swift. All right, if you've been running out Leonard Fournette every week, you have been feeling great. Not because Leonard Fournette is running for 100 yards, ripping off big runs, or scoring tons of touchdowns. No, you're feeling great because he's leading the Bucs in receptions and receiving yards. What? Yeah, well, nobody saw that coming. Leonard Fournette has been terrible on the ground this year. He was terrible on the ground again in week 7. And unfortunately, unlike the other weeks, he didn't catch a bunch of passes. 3 fantasy points in PPR leagues this week. 3. I think we saw kind of the chinks in the armor, kind of the red flags come to the surface this week. This Bucs offense is completely broken. No touchdowns against a Panthers team who is trying to tank and rebuild. They got smoked by this Panthers team. And like I said, Leonard Fournette had been living off of receptions. And look, that can only take you so far. At some point, the Bucs have to start targeting their wide receivers because you can't win football games just throwing it to your running back. And today, what do we see? Mike Evans, 15 targets. Chris Godwin, 12. They threw it to the receivers. They tried to get the ball downfield. It didn't work, of course, but they can't just keep dumping it off to Leonard Fournette 10 times a game and expecting to win. So I still think Leonard Fournette will be a solid every week running back. Probably just can't bank on those huge reception numbers going forward. Certainly not a lot of touchdown upside in this offense right now, and Leonard Fournette does not look good running the ball. So I'm going to put the panic level medium for Leonard Fournette. Still a solid every week play, but we may have seen the best of Leonard Fournette. Remember like the first few weeks when James Robinson was going to be a league winner and Travis Etienne was a complete bust? I remember those days. This is why you need patience in fantasy football. Nobody has any patience, but you need patience. Because now it looks like Travis Etienne actually will be a league winner. And James Robinson probably needs to be on your waiver wire. James Robinson had exactly as many touches as you and I did in this game. That would be 0. 0 touches for James Robinson in this game. I mean, he did get a target, so that's one more target than you and I got today. So that's at least encouraging. But look, I've talked about it for weeks now. I've been telling you to buy low on Travis Etienne. I said his talent is undeniably better than James Robinson. Talent will have to rise. And you know what people said to me? Oh, but Doug Peterson only uses committees. He only uses committees. Well, guess what? When one guy is extremely more talented than the other, you can't use a committee unless you don't want to win. If you're trying to win, the more talented guy is going to be on the field, and that's what we saw finally in week 7. Etienne completely took over this backfield in every possible way, much like Breece Hall did a few weeks ago. Now it's Etienne's turn. So if you went out and bought low on Travis Etienne, great job. You have a potential league winner on your hand, an every week high upside running back. It's too late to buy a low on him now, but if you held on to him and didn't panic drop him, you should be feeling good But for J-Rob, for James Robinson on the other side, panic level has to be sky high here. And honestly, it's time to drop James Robinson. All right, then another running back who looked great out of the gates and is getting close to droppable is A.J. Dillon. Last week, he had more carries and more targets than Aaron Jones, but then what did we see this week in week 7? Barely involved, only 4 carries. Now, granted, the Commanders somehow put the Packers in negative game script, which I don't think anybody saw coming, but still. A.J. Dillon is nothing more than a handcuffed running back at this point. He's going to need an Aaron Jones injury to really become valuable. And even then, how valuable is A.J. Dillon really going to be in this Green Bay offense? So A.J. Dillon, another running back, I have to put the panic level high. You don't have to drop A.J. Dillon, but at this point, you just got to understand he's nothing more than a high-end handcuff. All right, let's move on to wide receivers now. And does CeeDee Lamb need Cooper Rush? Is that what we're seeing here? Is Dak Prescott a downgrade for CeeDee Lamb? Probably not. I know it's easy to look at the numbers and think, man, this was a terrible game for CeeDee Lamb in a smash spot against the Lions. And you're right. I was expecting way more from CeeDee Lamb. But when you look a little closer, you realize what happened today. Dak only attempted 25 passes. They were able to run the ball effectively because it's the Lions. Zeke had what? 2 goal line, carries for a touchdown, and Hendershot scored a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb still had 6 targets on 25 Dak attempts. That's a great target share for him. Yeah, Noah Brown had 7, but other than that, they were the 2 top target getters. CeeDee Lamb will be fine. The Cowboys just didn't need to throw a lot today because, again, it's the Lions. Dak's first game back from injury. It will get better. CeeDee Lamb is an elite player. He gets an elite target share. Things will be fine for CeeDee Lamb. I'm putting the panic level low on CeeDee Lamb. All right, after a big bounce back week for Michael Pittman last week, it didn't really happen again here in week 7 in what I thought was a great spot for him. Only 6 catches for 58 yards plus a fumble. But on the bright side, he did have 9 targets. Now, Paris Campbell had 12, but still, 9 targets. You'll take that every single week for your wide receiver. It was a terrible game for Matt Ryan. 2 terrible interceptions. Did not look good. But look, we've seen this before with Michael Pittman. Everybody was ready to panic after he only had 11 points against the Broncos, and then he went out there and smashed. He's a wide receiver. He's not, Stephon Diggs. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Cooper Kupp. You can't expect him every week to have an insanely high floor and an insanely high ceiling. He has a very good floor with a great, great ceiling. So you can't be panicked about this. Panic level low. Michael Pittman will be fine, just like he was fine last time this happened. All right, and then a wide receiver who may already be losing some value because of his new teammate is Deebo Samuel, and he really lost a lot of value here in week 7, putting up pretty much a dud for him. 5 catches, 42 yards, 7 targets. And look, Deebo's kind of been a guy who hasn't really lived up to what he did last year so far this season. And now there's starting to be some red flags that you have to get really concerned about. Number one, they just traded for Christian McCaffrey. They're going to actually have a run game finally. San Francisco, one of the worst running teams in the NFL, which is not typical for a Shanahan offense. Number 2, the reemergence of George Kittle. George Kittle looks like an every week must-start tight end. Again, 9 targets today, plus Brandon Ayuk, 11 targets. Deebo Samuel's value was already going to take a little bit of a hit with Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion. But after today, it's taken an even bigger hit. I'm not really sure what you can do with Deebo. I know we got a lot of questions during our reactions, like should we trade him? But I don't know what you can really trade Deebo for. But if you can, I definitely think you should. It's going to be hard. I'm not going to put the panic level high for Deebo, but I am going to put the panic level at medium for Deebo Samuel right now. And then we knew it would be bad for Courtland Sutton this week with Brett Rippon. I think everybody that asked, should I start Courtland Sutton? I said no, unless they had terrible options, and it was bad. 3 catches, 23 yards. It was as bad as expected. He did have 9 targets, but let's be real. Most of those targets were completely uncatchable, thrown into coverage, like just no chance of really being caught. But look, we knew this was going to be the case. On the plus side, it does sound like Russell Wilson is trending towards playing next week. Now, granted, he was supposed to play this week, all week, and then he didn't play. So who knows? They do have their bye in week 9. So it would make sense to rest Russell Wilson one more game and then have him come back after the bye. If it's Brett Rippon again next week, you can't start Courtland Sutton once again. But look, I can't put the panic level high for Courtland Sutton because we know Russell Wilson is coming back. And in every game but one with Russell Wilson, Courtland Sutton has had double-digit PPR points. So he's been really good with Russell Wilson. It's just this week with Brett Rypien, we knew he would be terrible. So I'm going to put the panic level low still for Courtland Sutton because Russell Wilson will be back fairly soon and things will then be okay. I hope. And then I had Brandin Cooks as a boom this week and he busted. Because I guess that's just what Brandin Cooks is going to do this year. He's just going to bust every single week. And I don't know why. Is Brandin Cooks dust? Is he? I mean, he is getting up there in age. Maybe he is dust. I don't know. Is Davis Mills just not looking his way? I'm not really sure what's going on. But right now, Brandin Cooks needs to get traded, right? It seems like the only hope for Brandin Cooks at this point is a trade, whether it be to like Green Bay, maybe the Chargers, maybe the Chiefs, who knows, wherever, just anywhere really. Anywhere better would be good for Brandin Cooks. But outside of a trade, it just doesn't seem like it's going to get any better for Brandin Cooks. He's not getting, crazy amounts of targets. He's not getting shots down the field, not really getting red zone looks. It's just really bad for Brandin Cooks. So I have to put the panic level high for Brandin Cooks. You just got to hold him and hope he gets traded at this point. All right, let's get to a couple of rookies and let's start with Drake London. Now I had Drake London on here last week. Got to have him on here again. And at this point, it might be drop time for Drake London. Only one catch today, only one target. And here's a real issue for Drake London and really the entire Falcons passing game. There is no Falcons passing game. They don't throw the ball. They're down 18 late in the second half and they are just running the ball. They're playing slow. It's like Arthur Smith only knows how to play one style of offense, and it doesn't matter what the score is, doesn't matter what the situation is, that's what they're going to do. And that is bad news for Drake London and, of course, Kyle Pitts, who I'm going to talk about later, because there's just not enough opportunity in this offense to be fantasy relevant week in and week out. So panic level has to be high for Drake London. And honestly, it's getting to the point where you can probably drop Drake London in shallower leagues. The other rookie I got to talk about is Romeo Doubs. This was supposed to be a smash spot for Doubs against a terrible Commanders secondary. Yeah, Sammy Watkins was back, but come on, nobody really thought Sammy Watkins was going to do anything, right? Well, he did. He had more catches, more yards, and just as many targets as Doubs. Oh, and Robert Tonyan also had more catches, more yards, and just as many targets as Doubs. And that is the problem for Romeo Doubs here. If Watkins is healthy, Tonyan getting healthier, there's just not enough left for him. He can't be a guy you could trust in your lineup week in or week out. I don't even know if you could trust him in great matchups because this was a great matchup and he didn't do anything. So Romeo Doubs, probably just a guy you got to stash on your bench and hope it gets better. I got to put the panic level high for Romeo Doubs. All right, let's move on to tight end. And of course, I already kind of mentioned him, but got to talk about Kyle Pitts. Now on the plus side, he did get an end zone target and he did get a target close to the goal line where he stopped at the 1. On the downside, only 5 targets, only 3 catches, only 9 yards. And just like I talked about with Drake London, that is the problem here. The Falcons do not throw. Even when they are getting blown out, they still don't throw. It's crazy to me what Arthur Smith is doing or not doing there. But until it changes, you got to look at Kyle Pitts as nothing more than one of these touchdown-dependent, desperation tight ends. He can't be considered an every week start at the tight end position anymore. Yes, he's a good, kind of streaming option if you're desperate at tight end kind of option, but he's not an every week must start tight end. And it's not his fault. It's just this offense. How is this offense going to support Kyle Pitts as an every week tight end? I just don't see how it's going to happen. So panic level has to be high for Kyle Pitts. Now I do have to mention Mark Andrews. Only 2 targets today, no catches. Not really sure what was going on. This passing game of the Ravens, it looks absolutely broken right now. But still, I'm going to chalk this up to maybe Mark Andrews wasn't 100% and they put him out there just more of like a decoy, kind of like what we saw, from T. Higgins a couple weeks ago, where he wasn't really going to be involved and they knew it. I don't know, but this just makes no sense to me that Mark Andrews only gets 2 targets in this game. So, but still, Mark Andrews has been great this year. We know he'll be great going forward. Can't panic on Mark Andrews. Panic level has to be low here. All right, now let's get to quarterback, and I got to start with Tom Brady. I mean, is it over for Tom Brady? Is he dust? Does he just not care? Is his head not in it? I'm not sure, but my goodness, getting smoked by the Carolina Panthers, who are trying to rebuild, who are trying to tank for picks, It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I don't know what to do with Tom Brady. He's been terrible most of the season, terrible again this week. Not really throwing the ball downfield much, not really throwing for touchdowns. This offense isn't putting up points. This is not the Tampa Bay offense we've seen the last 2 years. I mean, duh, Captain Obvious, I get it. So Tom Brady right now cannot be started in a 1 QB league. Just cannot be started in a 1 QB league. And even in a Superflex 2 QB league, he's barely startable. So Tom Brady, panic level has to be high. All right, I mentioned Lamar Jackson last week, and a lot of people said, I'm not panicking on Lamar Jackson. Well, how about now? Are you panicking on Lamar Jackson now? Because he hasn't topped 17 fantasy points in 4 straight games. Just got you 10 points in here in week 7 against a bad Browns defense. And this passing attack looks broken. I don't know any other way to put it. It looks absolutely broken. I don't know if Rashad Bateman wasn't healthy. He's not the answer. They don't really have anybody outside of him. Mark Andrews, maybe he wasn't healthy this week. But this is 4 straight weeks where Lamar Jackson has been mediocre to slightly better than mediocre to not very good at all. And you got to really start worrying about Lamar Jackson and this offense, because there are not a lot of weapons around Lamar Jackson right now. And he can only run for so many yards. He can only do so much on the ground. But still, it still is Lamar Jackson. I got to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I got to give him the fact that it will get better. But still, I can't put the panic level low. I'm going to go medium here on Lamar Jackson, because this is definitely a concerning trend over the last 4 games. All right, so now you know some players you maybe should or should not be panicking about. What about waiver wire pickups? What about guys you should be going out and trading for? Who to start, who to sit? We got you covered. Everything you need to help you win in Week 8. Check out our playlist right here, our Week 8 playlist to help you win.